Hello and welcome back. I hope I remember to stitch the video at the beginning because it will help give you a visualization of what I'm about to talk about. So, a couple of weeks ago, I decided to meet up with a buddy, hang out, have a couple of drinks, have some food, you know, the whole 9 yards. And the reason, actually, I've been holding off making this video is because it really upsets me to talk about it. However, I feel like it needs to be said. When me and my friend were going about our business, we were in the city of Glasgow, and I couldn't help but notice a number of things that really jumped out at me. And bearing in mind, these things that I'm about to mention are not specific to Glasgow. It's not as if I've never seen it before, being from the East Coast, being from Edinburgh. But it was much more severe. So, and I'm going to say some things that some people won't like hearing. So, the rates of
miscegenation
was one of the main things that jumped out of me. Specifically, white women and
black
or
Indian or Chinese
males. I thought that was a very interesting situation. Very interesting. Because it was never the other way around. There wasn't a Chinese female with a black man or a white man. There wasn't a woman with a white man or a Chinese man. It was always the same thing. A white woman
with a black man,
Chinese man, an Indian man.
And if she was with a white man, it was the most repugnant, ugly, fat, missing teeth, almost homosexual type of white man. He wasn't big and strong, he wasn't broad, he wasn't muscular, he wasn't anything like that. I thought that was very interesting. And people will say things like, oh well, you're just a fucking racist, and so that's, you know, you've just picked up on that, and you know, you're making it out to be more of a people have been doing this for like a couple of decades now, and I think this form of deflection is getting real fucking old, because more and more people are willing to fucking speak up about it as we lose semblance of community and a need to fit in. You know, when everything around you starts decaying, and believe me, there is more to speak about other than just the peculiar dating pairings that I'm seeing. When more and more things start to fall apart, there's less of a reason to hold my tongue, bro. I'm gonna be honest. And I'm not, you know, I'm not hateful. I'm not saying anything hateful here. I'm just noticing a pattern. And apparently I'm not allowed to do that. So yes, I saw tons of white women. And these women, you know, were good looking in the face a lot of the time, but they destroyed their bodies with tattoos. With piercings in strange places, you know. And they looked happy. And that was another thing I saw. Was everyone was happy to just live in the shit, to just be surrounded by decay. Okay, so let's talk about the other things, because I'm going off on a tangent right now. Homelessness. Unbelievable amounts of homelessness. Not only homelessness, but the homeless population were also drug addicts. I can recall one incident where I was walking down down the street, and there was like some kind of restaurant or bistro. This was a very hot day, by the way. This was a couple of weeks ago. There was a bistro that had like an open seating plan out the front, you know, so people could sit in the sunshine and have their dinner and smoke cigarettes if they wanted to, and things like this. And there were loads of people just sitting there, you know, chatting and going about their business, you know, just talking about stuff. And about 6 feet away from a whole bunch of people having their dinner was what I can only really describe as a potentially dead homeless guy being attacked by seagulls. He wasn't moving, and they were dive bombing him. They were shitting all over him. They were eating like crumbs of a bread roll that was in his hand or something. And he was slumped over. If you've ever seen Family Guy, and you've seen like Peter Griffin falling down the stairs, and you know how he ends up at the bottom of the stairs and he's all contorted and fucked up? That's what he was like. He was like Peter Griffin had just fallen down the stairs. His arm was behind his back, his legs were all fucked, and he was just laying there, and he wasn't moving, and he wasn't talking to anyone. And I looked at him, and I looked at the people in the bistro. And then I looked at the homeless guy again, and then I looked at the people in the bistro. And I kept doing this for about 30 seconds, hoping that someone would notice that I am, you know, in shock at what the fuck I'm seeing. That nobody seems to give a fuck about this homeless guy. And nobody done anything. People walked past him. Didn't even notice him. Didn't even fucking look down at him. Nobody, you know, fucking gave him a kick to see if he was still breathing, right? Nothing. I was the only guy going, hey, should we fucking do something about this? So I went over to him, and again, he wasn't moving. I didn't know what to do, okay? I'm going to be honest, I kind of panicked. Because everything just became so overwhelming. I talk about the immigration factor now. Lots and lots of Muslims, Pakistani Muslims, walking around with like scars all over their faces, like they're like Barbary pirates or something. Like someone had cut them in the face with a scimitar. Missing eyes, missing ears, missing fucking hands with like hooks on them. I saw one Muslim woman with a missing arm up to her elbow. And they all had loads of kids. Fucking unbelievable. Their eyes pointing in different directions. That was something I noticed too. Loads of them. Loads of Muslims walking around with eyes pointing in different directions. It was a Friday night, and so all the chicks were walking around as well, and they were all scantily clad, not wearing very much clothes. Groups of guys and groups of girls, but not very many groups of guys and girls. Just trash everywhere, needles everywhere. Everything smelled like piss. There was an alleyway with some weird like HIV prostitute just sort of strung out with a needle bouncing in her arm. Just awful. And there was some kind of like gay, forgot about this, there was some kind of gay like parade thing that was going on at the time. And you know, 99% of the gay people were lesbians, wearing 3/4 length shorts with short hair, you know, dungarees or something, holding hands with some like tranny. I saw women making their small male boy children wear the trans flag. I believe it's the trans flag. It's the blue and like purple one, as like a cape, like a Superman cape. And they were very proud, you know, because I noticed it. And I looked at the kid, and I looked at the mother, and I looked at the kid, and I kind of smiled so that I'm not being weird about it, right? I'm sort of like, hello, this is an interesting thing to see. And the mother looked down at the kid, so proud, so smiling, beaming with happiness that someone had noticed that their son was wearing a trans flag. 6 years old, tiny little baby, right? Just a little baby walking about. And she's beaming with joy, you know. And that was something I noticed too, is how happy these people seemed to be walking around, seeing what was going on. They were so happy. People were singing. You know how you get those in cities, you get those sort of hipster guys with the big beard and the long hair, and they're on their guitar just out in the street, just in public, with a microphone, and they're singing songs. You know, what were they singing? They were singing like Beatles songs, like "Let It Be," and fucking. I can't think now, but like just sort of like happy, sort of hippie, positive music. Oh, everything's oh, love is love. That was basically the vibe. Was love is love. Everybody should just fuck. That was basically what was going on. No order. It was chaos. It was chaos. People running into you in the street, potentially pickpockets. They're not going to pick my pockets though, because fucking there's nothing in them. So yeah. Anyway, I actually, you know, despite that, I had a good time hanging out with my buddy. It was cool, but you know, it left a lasting impression. I mean, this is like 2 weeks later, and I'm still thinking about it, and I'm terrified to go back. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Just the patterns, you know, pattern recognition skills just off the charts. Why are so many white women not dating white people? Am I allowed to ask that? Or is that is that a racially motivated? Well, it is racially. It's a question though. You know, every animal in nature tends to hang out with those that are genetically similar to them, except white women. From the looks of it, I think that's particularly interesting. That is particularly interesting because it's only happening in one demographic, and apparently, you're not allowed to ask that question. Why is it so frequent? Why is it when they do date a white man, they're dating some pudgy, fat little freak with missing teeth? He's shorter than her. You know. What is going on? What is going on with women? Why are they doing these things? Why is there so much homelessness? I thought, you know, the government was trying to make homelessness go away, but there has been more than ever. So much drugs. Why aren't the police doing something about drug dealers? You know, I forgot to mention, there were 2 cops walking around. And I actually ended up having to speak to them because some homeless guy was beating up his dog. He was kicking the fuck out of it. And these girls came up to us, me and my friend, they came up to us and they were crying. They were like, he's kicking the dog and he's doing it. And I was like, well, calm down, you know, just tell me what's going on. And apparently, he had been sitting there all night, just punching the shit out of his dog. I shouldn't laugh, okay? It's not nice, but it was just so fucking random. I was like, what the fuck? So we went over to him, and he's trying to convince us. He's like, oh, the dog's fine. You know, I wasn't hitting it. We were just playing. But the thing that made me think that he was lying was there were multiple different girls coming up to us and saying, he's hitting the dog. And they were crying and stuff. You know, girls that I never spoke to. So it made sense that actually, yes, he was beating up this dog. And he was trying to convince us that he didn't. So anyway, these policemen came down. And I go up to the policeman, I tell him what happened, you know. just before the homeless guy jumps in and fucks up the narrative, as they often do, they try to get the first word in so that, whatever. And I told them what had happened. And the police look at each other and they go, well, it's fine, I'm sure, they basically told me that they couldn't be bothered doing anything about it. It wasn't worth the hassle. So they were getting paid to just walk around in high-vis equipment. They wouldn't want to actually do something about, because I thought, okay, people are cocks for animals, right? People, they love doggies, whatever. I thought maybe the police will actually do something here, and take this dog in and whatever. And they're like, no, we can't be bothered. And they just walked away. Oh man, shit's getting bad out there, man. I mean, even where I live, I notice the same sort of stuff, but on a much smaller scale. It's traveling west. Whatever the fuck is going on, this fucking disease, this mental disease, it's traveling west from America. That's just my view. It's creeping. It's like it's like a fucking like, how in mythology they have like the creeping frost, or like, there's some kind of like wasteland that's slowly creeping up on the borders, and it's like taking things over. It's like twisting things. It's like it's deforming things. It's some kind of magical spell that's just working its way through the land, right? Some sort of fantasy story. It's what it's like. And it's traveling east from America. And it's already taken over half of Scotland and the UK in general, right? And my half is already fucked. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm living in paradise here, okay? My place is already fucked, but it's not nearly as fucked as the West Coast. In Edinburgh, there's some semblance of like, people can remember how it used to be, right, where I live. Whereas over there, they don't have any memory of what it used to be. That's how far things have gotten, People in 2016 used to talk about how, there are places where people can only remember how it used to be. Well, that's the new normal now. And what is coming is a society where they don't even remember what it used to be like. Like, do you know the significance of that? Like, it's over, bro. I'm telling you, right now, live. Well, not live when you watch it. I actually think it's over. I think we're finished. Because not only is this happening, people are smiling. People enjoy this. They think it's good. And if you try to rail against it, if you're against it in any way, you're strange. You're actually the weird one. Because you want to reverse what's going on. What's going on is a good thing. Why is it a good thing? Nobody knows. But it's a good thing. And that's what they tell themselves, and that's what they tell you. And if you don't say the same thing back to them, if you haven't got the download, which is what it feels like. It feels like they have like a DLC, like a downloadable content, that they've had it downloaded into their brain, and they see it as a good thing. Whereas you haven't had this DLC. And so when they're talking to you, they try to fish for this. They're like, is this a guy with the DLC or is he not? And if you're not, then you're like a problem. You haven't been updated, right? It's a bit like the NPC idea, but like in real life, like not just like a meme, but like it really seems like it's a real thing. I don't know what to make of this. You know, the older I get, I've been saying this to people in my life. I've been saying to people in my life that like the older I never thought any of this was possible. Like it never even crossed my imagination. It you know, it's very creative. What like the people who have devised this this new reality. You know, it never crossed like I don't. You read the Turner Diaries. Even in the Turner Diaries, there was never this like blatant, not only a blatant acceptance of it, but like an enjoyment that this is good. If you read the Turner Diaries, it speaks about what's going on, but there's this underlying narrative that everybody knows that this is fucked up. But that's not what I see. I see a celebration. You know what it feels like? It feels like if you're like me, you live in a parallel universe where you can interact with the other universe, you can interact with the people in it. You're a bit like a poltergeist that everyone can see and everyone can talk to. But they live in a world where what's happened turned out to be a really good thing. There hasn't been the decay. There are no homeless people, right? When they go outside, they see doves flying in the sky with a rainbow, and everyone is walking around with pots of gold coins. Everyone is rich. Everyone is happy. Everyone's good looking. Everyone and no homelessness. There's flying cars. Finally, after all these years, that's what they see. They literally, physically see that when they go outside. That's my new theory. Because it's either these people genuinely live in an alternative reality that they can only interact with mine, or these people are not people at all. They are fake. They are not real human beings. Because a real human being would look at what's going on, remember how it used to be, and then be able to do a graph in their head of a decline. Things have gotten worse. So I'm not going to smile as much because things have gotten worse. I'm going to be unhappy about this. I'm going to talk about it with people. I'm not going to pretend that it's not happening, because it's impossible to do that if you're a real human being. So those are the two realities that I believe are the only possibilities left. Okay? I, and people like me, the 144,000, right? If you want to get biblical about it, the 144,000 in the world who are actually human beings, realized human beings, who are able to put puzzle pieces together and notice things and talk about things and whatever. It comes so naturally, like it's not even a skill. It's just who I am. You know, a skill would be like being able to do art, being able to notice patterns and changes in your society is not a skill. To me, it's an inherent part of who you are. You are a human being. You have pattern recognition skills because you have a consciousness. Right? So there's only a small group of people in the world who are capable of it. Everyone else in one of two scenarios, everyone else is just not a real person. They're just filler. They're there to make this reality seem more alive and more interesting than it really is. Okay, that's theory number one. Theory number two is that yes, these people are real people. However, I live in another dimension that I can only interact with these people in the heavenly dimension, you know? When, like I said, they go outside, they step outside their front door and they see butterflies and rainbows and pots of gold and leprechauns and fucking and you know, unicorns flying around. Like, that's what they see when they go outside. But when I go outside, I see decay, I see homeless people, I see women dating like some guy who would be on a Werner Herzog documentary in the jungle. That's what I see. She's covered in horrible tattoos of like snakes. Women love tattooing themselves with snakes. That's really interesting. Serpents. And scorpions. And horrible spiders. And worms. And beetles. And all sorts of insects. They think that that is a really good thing to do. To permanently mark themselves with disgusting, disease ridden insectoids and parasites. I think that's very interesting. Has anyone else noticed this, or am I talking into the void here? I don't know what's going on, you know. And you know what the third option is? The third option is something that Dashboard has brought up before. We're dead. We're actually all dead. That's the third option, and I'm very terrified of this. I'm very scared of this. Genuinely, it terrifies me. That's why I never brought it up until the last minute, because I need to speak about it. I think we're all dead. You know, I spoke to Dashboard about it. He has an event in his life where I won't go into details, but he says that perhaps he died during this event. I also have my own near-death experience. Very similar to that story. And I wonder, sometimes, because I try not to think about it, but I wonder if perhaps I have died and I am in a hell realm. But I've not been a terrible, horrible, evil person in my life, because it's not in my nature to be like that. And so there are good things, you know. I'm not being horrendously tortured physically forever. You know, it's all psychological and subtlety. You know, God would deal in subtleties. If he was a real thing, he would deal in subtleties. He wouldn't deal in like mechanical bullshit. I don't believe so. And so, you know, materially speaking, I'm doing okay. I'm not homeless. I'm not fucked up. I'm not a drug addict. But psychologically, because my mind is quite delicate, because there's a lot going on inside of it, I'm very vulnerable to noticing, hey, what the fuck? What's going on here? Excuse me? What was that? And then everybody around me, I didn't see anything. Did you see anything? No, I never saw anything. Did you? No. So you must be imagining things. But I swear it was different 10 years ago. This wasn't the... I don't think so. I think it's always been this way. Do you think it's always been this way? I think it's always been this way. Do you think it's always been this way? Yes. I think you're imagining things. That is almost a worse form of torture. To someone who is obsessed with truth, such as myself, and finding out what's really going on, so that I can have a real tangible grasp on reality to be able to live my life accordingly, you know, with this hard rule set that I'm able to fucking just understand. That is torture. Because nothing is not you try to grab it, and as soon as you touch it, it turns into a wisp of smoke. But it was just there. What was just there? The thing. I never saw a thing. Did you see a thing? No. That kind of shit. Because it feels like dementia. That's how they describe dementia. You know? Not schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a different thing. But dementia. It's like dementia. You were just talking to someone, but that person didn't exist. It was a memory of someone that you had that became reality, and your whole reality just starts to kind of fall apart if you're demented. It's what it feels like, and I'm too young to have dementia. I'm not even 30 yet, so I can only conclude that this is some kind of spiritual reality where I'm being tasked with sticking it out for as long as I can. And the older I get, the more fucked up it's going to get. to test your resolve, almost. You know, when you're young, I don't think God would do that to you. I don't know, there's a lot of things that happen to kids now, right? But I've never seen it happen, so as far as I'm aware, maybe it's just something to make you feel scared. But the older you get, the more that you would be tested on things. The more that, okay, let's have him walk down the street and he's going to see a supermodel making out with a dwarf. A genuine dwarf. That's what we're going to make him see. Let's see if his mind can handle a supermodel getting fucked in the street by a dwarf with 3 arms. He's a mutant dwarf with 3. So that seems like something God would do. Because God is morbid. He's a morbid fucker. I'm not going to say he's evil, but he's morbid. Okay, he's been up there by himself for a long time. So, you do get a bit morbid, I think. As an only child, I understand that very well. Okay? You come up with funny things that perhaps normal people wouldn't find very funny. This video, it's more of a therapeutic thing for myself, just to be able to process what I had seen, to recount it, and to talk about it with people on the internet, if anybody watches this, you know. But it's mainly a form of therapy. Because I know that if I was to actually speak to a therapist about this, they would do the same thing that most normal people would do, which is to say it's not happening. This is all in your head. And if it is happening, it's a good thing. That's basically what you get told. Why does it bother you so much? Do you feel personally insulted by what? Like they would try to gaslight you into thinking that, you know, this is like a personal inadequacy. And that's why you care so much about it, because of your personal failings. When in reality, the reason I give a shit about it is because it wasn't like this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and it's happened very quickly. So I would like to know why. Why has the narrative so rapidly changed without any official mention that this is what's going on. You know, there's just subtleties in narratives, and wow, love is love. Love is love. Multicultural, multiracial. Oh wow, this is cool. And for some reason, the vast majority of people get fed what is going on. They upload it into their brain, and then this is just reality now. We all believe this. Genuinely, we would die for this. We would die so that white women can date blacks. I would go to war for that. I would go to war, you know, this is not me saying this, by the way, it's someone else. I would go to war in Russia and shoot Russian soldiers so that gay people can have anal sex. And he believes this. He genuinely believes this. These are his genuine beliefs. Because he got told about this 10 years ago. This is the new narrative now. Okay. Alright. I believe what I've been told on TV now, and you know, they basically seek out people who don't believe this by asking them leading questions to see if you're part of the fucking Borg. So, I mean, it's terrifying. Like, why is this even happening? And why does nobody give a shit? Why does nobody fucking notice it? Nobody even mentions it in public. Nobody remarks on it. Hey, that was quite strange. Look at this 6'9" transsexual. That's what another thing I keep seeing. I keep seeing transsexuals all the time. And they're getting younger and younger and younger. Guys transitioning into girls. Girls transitioning into guys. Big ones. Big the height of the fucking door. Big, ginormous, you know, big transsexuals. 6'8", 7 feet tall. The largest transsexual that you will ever fucking see, the height of the fucking door, 7 feet tall. And they're just wandering around, living life normally. Like, why would someone who's 7 feet tall think to become a woman? That is really interesting. Because you never see ones that you could say, oh well, that person actually passes as a you never see that. It's always someone who is robustly masculine that becomes one. In some way, they're very tall, they're very muscular, they're very broad bones. You know, in the Elder Scrolls, which is a game series, there's a god in the Elder Scrolls, or a Daedric god, like an evil demon god, called Sheol-Gorath. And he's the Daedric god or prince of madness. And in one of the games, there's a DLC, downloadable content, where you get to go to his realm, right? And it's got weird creatures, weird architecture, weird color-coded stuff, big gigantic weird mushrooms and things, just a realm of madness. And I can't remember the reason why he does what he does, but he's known as like one of the scariest, or one of the most dangerous sort of demon princes compared to a lot of other ones. And he's sort of the most famous amongst the community. Everybody likes him because he's funny. But madness is not something to laugh about. Because, you know, if you're being physically tortured or physically, you know, beat up or whatever, like, you've still got your mind. You're in pain or whatever. Someone's punching the shit out of it. Okay, it sucks, right? I get it. But at least you have your sanity. At least you have your mind. At least you can say, I know reality is concrete, and I know what's happening to me is a bad thing because reality is concrete and I'm comparing it to things I already know. Okay? Just deductive reasoning. But if you feel like you're losing your mind, that reality is not a concrete experience, that it can be changed, even the fundamentals that you thought were fundamentals are actually options. Then nothing is sacred because nothing is concrete. Nothing is frowned upon or considered sinful because nothing is concrete. Everything loses meaning, meaningfulness. Why do humans strive for meaning? It's because it's to make sense of what is happening. We have a natural desire, at least I thought we all did, to live in a world of order, to live in a world where we make sense of the world around us so that we can learn from it. But we've been plunged into a world of madness. And the scariest thing about it is how adapted so many people seem to be. I mentioned before how when I was in Glasgow, everyone was happy about what was going on. Everyone was ecstatic. They were waving their pride flags, walking past dead homeless people in the street like he wasn't even there. Just, yay! Gay pride! And this dead homeless is dead. And they don't even realise that he's there. They're focused on gayness. They love gayness. They love's love. You know, they'll talk about homelessness all till the cows come home when there's a conservative government in power. Look at the homelessness. Look at what they're doing to the poor. Oh, but then when it's not that, when that is not happening, when it's a left wing government, then all of a sudden the homeless guy doesn't exist. He genuinely doesn't exist in these people's minds. This is what you got to understand. Okay, these people, he blinks out of existence. That's why he's laying dead on the street, because nobody can see him. Nobody's phoned an ambulance. Only I can see him, because he has phased into my reality. A separate parallel universe than the one that these other people are living in. That's the only explanation. Either that, or these people are not real people, and they're here to make the world seem more alive than it really is. Obviously, the third option is that I am dead, and I am in hell, and this is some kind of like simulated experience that I need to learn from in order to climb up the rungs of consciousness or something. I don't know. I don't know how, the atheist argument of living in a concrete universe, I don't know how you could possibly justify the Big Bang coming from concrete reality, and how this is all just a material 3D universe. There's nothing spiritual about it. I don't know how can you rationalize that perspective with people not understanding that things have changed? How can you square the circle with reality is a concrete experience, we live in a 3D reality, everything only has 3 dimensions, there is no God, there is no spirituality, there is no such thing as magic, and then people can walk outside and see kids wearing trans stuff, and big massive trannies, gigantic trannies, dead homeless people in the street being attacked by birds, women selecting for black men and Asian men and Indian men en masse, covered in disgusting fucking tattoos of evil creatures like scorpions and snakes. Mr. Atheist believes the world is a concrete reality, and yet within 10 years things can go from being semi-decent to that. And Mr. Atheist doesn't seem to see that perhaps there is more to this world than meets the eye, and that the ancients didn't just come up with the concept of magic and spells and witchcraft on its own. It didn't just think it up without any fucking without any like anchor, without something to fucking to reference. You have witch doctors in sub-Saharan Africa, a culture that has been around for thousands of years that did not have any contact with Europeans because they were separated by the Sahara Desert. And yet these guys came up with witchcraft in the same way that Europeans came up with witchcraft. Even the Chinese, who are known not to be religious, also believe in magic and witchcraft. The I Ching, right? It's a divination book where you can speak to fate or the gods or whatever. The divine celestial god or whatever the fuck these Chinese believe. They've got a weird mind. Everybody seems to have come up with the same fucking thing. That this is not merely some material reality, that there is more that meets the eye, and it takes a lot of study or to have intuition, to be able to figure it out. Druids. Who were the Druids? The Druids were seers. People who were able to make sense of the magical reality of the world and make it make sense to the people who can't understand it. I sometimes think maybe that's what I am. I am Scottish after all. And what, these people just fucking vanished? Are you for real? These people were sacred in society for thousands of years, and then within like 500 years or something, these people just vanished out of reality. They're not being continuously born within the population. Are you for real? But of course, most people are science orientated now. They believe in 3D reality, and so they would never listen to me. They would say that I'm I have latent schizophrenia, I need to be sectioned, I'm a lunatic, because of what I'm talking about. But I think I've been pretty cohesive, and I think I make sense. I think that what I've said is a linear progression in discussion, right? I don't think I'm jumping around talking about, like if you listen to a schizophrenic talking, it sounds like they're making sense, but it's all jumbled up nonsense. I believe what I said in this video, I hope anyway, has been a linear progression of discussion, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So that you can see that I'm not a madman. It's my worst fear, is people thinking that I'm a lunatic and I can't be taken seriously. And yet I'm seeing all this stuff that is happening around me, and nobody else seems to notice it except a couple of other fucking shut-in lunatics online from across the world. And we're in these communities being like, did you see this as well? Yes, it's much worse where I live. Really? Oh, fuck. But your average person just doesn't see it. In your country, you try and wake them up, they fucking put you in prison for it. What a fucking mad world we live in, man. You know what? There's one thing I hope. I hope to God that he's real, and I hope that he is benevolent, and I hope I get some fucking answers. That would be my wish. That God says to you, what do you want? You can fuck all these women. You can like a genie, right? I know I shouldn't think of God like a genie, but because you've got to be careful what you wish for with genies, right? That's the funny thing about them is they'll grant your wish, but there'll be some kind of caveat that makes it kind of fucked up, right? So you say, I wish for 5 more wishes, and so he grants you a piece of paper with 5 more wishes written on it. Stuff like that. But I would say to God, I want to know what the fuck that place was. Earth. I want to know what was going on, for real. What was going on? What the fuck? What was going on? Who was really running things? Was it the people I think it is? Did they practice magic on the population? Why did people become like that? What was the point? What were you trying to tell me? What the fuck happened? Why did it change so quickly? How can people not notice things? Why didn't people listen to me? I'd have all these questions. And I would beg God to fucking give me the straight answer. Tell me. So that I can fucking rest in peace. Genuine peace. That I can know that it wasn't me that was fucking crazy, it was everyone else. And I know that's what a crazy person would say. But it's my wish, man, because I've given up hope of people waking up to this and becoming normal. So the only other hope is that I'm not the crazy one, and that I can rest knowing that it wasn't my fault. None of it was my fault. I tried my best, and it just wasn't good enough because I'm made for a different time. Who I am is not fit for this world. I don't know. Okay, this has almost been an hour that I've been going on and on and on and on. Probably my longest video on the channel. I hope you can glean some kind of sense out of this. I don't know. I'll see you in the next one.